2024 Tech Hub Live, and we are here with Dr. Jennifer Clarke, one of my favorite people, and talking about technology and talking about the NAPDC. Mm-hmm. So tell us what that is.
Right.
And we'll kind of go from there. See what happens.
Sure. So the NAPDC is the National Agricultural Producers Data Cooperative. It's a big mouthful. But put it very simply, it's a project that was started in 2021 by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It recognized the importance of data to agricultural producers, which, that's not a surprise to anybody. But it was an area, I think, in which USDA had played a very limited role. Their role was really, the National Ag Statistical Service, collect what they're required by the government to collect. But they hadn't really stepped into the realm of, what are producers doing with actual data that's useful to their production systems? Mm-hmm. What's the value in data that we could be giving back to producers? How do producers access cyber infrastructure? They really hadn't worked in that broader space. Mm-hmm. So they started this project to bring together a lot of land-grant universities, industry partners, ag retailers, cooperatives, to kind of talk about what's needed in the data space, and provide resources that would be open. And by the way, they mean open. They don't mean open like everybody get your data open, which is what everybody thinks, and then they run from me. I'm like, no,
important to clarify, right?
That's not what I'm saying. It's intended to be open, meaning everybody can participate, and then those who participate, they're the ones who decide who gets access to what data, right? What do they want to keep private? What are they comfortable with sharing? And also allow the producer community some type of platform where they could access all the research that's going on at the land grant universities. I mean, most of that's taxpayer funded, right? And I think that the USDA response has always been, absolutely, we make it all available to you. But these days, with the scale of data and the amount that we have, making it available can itself be a challenge, right? It's I'd love to give you terabytes of my drone data, but that's not trivial to do, right? So trying to figure that out. And I haven't even talked about the whole AI and trying to make data AI ready. That's a whole nother
10 minutes, right?
Yeah, that's a fireside long conversation. That's not a chat anymore.
Well, so started in 21, so a couple 3 years. What are some of the early observations and things you're seeing, things you're learning, maybe something that was surprising?
I think we've learned a lot since the beginning. I mean, I think that first year, the support that we got was mostly to scope, right? What's a reasonable scope for the project? Who are the key people and organizations to be involved early on? And then how to make sure that as we're building it, and we heard from the keynote speaker this morning, how important it is to be trustworthy and to be honest with everyone, and to build that community trust around data. And so we spent the first year working on that. And then I think the last 2 years have been providing funding to smaller companies and university partners to try to address gaps in the data system. So that could be how do farmers access wireless systems? If you're not well connected to the internet, it's hard to leverage data. How do we get farms connected? How do we make sure that people who are involved can make privacy decisions about sharing data, not sharing data? Is there a way we can anonymize data to make it easier to share? That's part of the trust side. And I think looking, forward, some of the surprises have been, how do you, and some of the other speakers have talked about this too. How do you define return on investment around data?
Yeah,
right.
How do you measure that?
Most ag producers are working with thin margins, right? They've got to be profitable. And it's easy for us to come in as data people and say, oh, we could provide this for you, and we could do that for you. The concern is that, you start making solutions where there's not problems. Very engineer type approach to things. Or you miss the aspect, which is this has to be economically viable, right? It may be a product that works. It may be an analysis program that works, but works to the producer community means it has economic value, right? However they define that, right?
Right.
So I think that was one of the interesting aspects was all the different ways people define value. I think the other part is that all these data services, they take resources, especially if you're talking about large scale of data, right? We drive around, we use our phones all the time. We don't really think about huge server farms, enormous consumption of energy.
Right.
So if you're thinking sustainable ag, I'm like, well, sustainable tech is the same. I mean, it's the same problem, right? We use enormous amounts of energy to run all our devices and do our analytics. So how can we develop a national system that's, energy friendly, right? That gives us answers to questions that we're actually asking, that we want, and not just providing answers to provide answers, right? Which is a lot. You can kind of get in that trap of, oh, there's all this cool data out there. I'll just answer all these billions of questions. It's like, well, yeah, but does anybody really care? Does anybody care about answering that question, right? So those have been some of the interesting aspects of the project.
Well, kind of on that note, and like you said earlier, just kind of a spirit of collaboration, openness, come all. I mean, whether it's Ag Gateway or other similar, I guess there's some overlap with what's existing.
Yep.
How do you all compare notes, if you will, and make sure that you're not stepping on each other's toes and doing work that's all collectively making the impact?
Right. No, absolutely. So, I mean, part of it is coming to events like this, hearing what everybody's doing, right? So, like the speaker right before me is talking about how do we analyze the data, right? How do we manage it? How do we coordinate it? How do we provide value? And I'm like, absolutely, right? That's the Ag Gateway is a really important industry, group that we communicate with. We also communicate with other scientific communities and organizations, especially in the engineering space. So work with the biological engineers about what are you guys doing? How can we assist you? We work with the Ag Data Coalition, which is really on the farmer side about how do we provide resources for you. So I see it more as trying to avoid duplication, rather than like I'm stepping on someone's toes. If I'm stepping on your toes, I'm like, ooh, I must be in a popular space. Like, how can I help you, right? I don't want to be stepping on your toes, but maybe I want to be walking in the same direction with you.
Yeah.
So let's have a conversation. And I find that that's relatively easy to do if I'm presenting it as, this project is building something for your benefit. It's not for me. I'm not competing with you. I'm actually trying to bring something that's for public use that will be, everyone will see value in. And so if I solve the problem, if I'm lucky enough to solve a problem of data interoperability, I'm going to share it with everybody because, that's part of the taxpayer value, right? Is that I'll return that to you. So it's fairly easy to work with groups, but it's that communication piece. It's like you've always got to be available, open, and asking, hey, what are your priorities, and how can we be useful to your constituents? I think that's an important perspective to take.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, what's the website for NAPDC?
So the website is the agdatacoop.org. It's a .org. So it's easy to find. You can sign up for the listserv. I think we have about 300 to 400 people. We make announcements about all kinds of events that are happening, like these type of events. We also will have, I'm hoping, usually every fall we have a call for proposals. So if you have an idea that you think, ooh, you know, I could use a couple hundred, maybe $100,000 to do something cool. We could all use that, right? I want to solve a data problem. Great. We put out a call for proposals, right, which we review, and we provide funding for groups to do things in that space. So that's a nice thing to keep your eye on. And, you know, I think one of the things that we're looking to in the future, like in the next year or two, is how do our data systems work well with AI, right? Everyone's been talking about AI. How it can be very enabling, right? It can help automation. So how do we prepare data systems that can support the development of those type of methods, right? Because it all rests on the quality of the training data. So, you know, how do we enable those systems?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jennifer Clarke,
Absolutely.
NAPDC.
All right.
Always nice to see you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.